If you value these conversations, subscribe and leave a review. It helps more than you think. There is a moment in every industry when the veterans look around the table and realize something uncomfortable. And that's that the room is getting older. Maybe you are already the oldest person at the table. Fresh Blood is a series inside Jeansland where I step aside, or at least lean back and listen, to the people under 30 who are already inside the jeans supply chain. Not influencers, not commentators, not big-time fancy operators. They're the next layer, the next shift, the next pulse. The series is about catching the heartbeat of a new generation, how they think about their jeans, the industry and its future. And I want to hear from people not just in Europe, Turkey, or USA. I want to hear from those in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, China, wherever. Please do write me. In this series, we talk about sustainability from their point of view. Maybe most importantly, we ask whether jeans will matter in 20 years, and if so, what the world will look like for them at that time. I'm doing this series because every industry faces the same test. It either renews itself or it calcifies. These are the voices that determine which direction we go. This series is called Fresh Blood. We hope you like it. So with me today is Hayato Nishi. Actually, Hayato-san reached out to me and asked if I was interested in interviewing him as a young person in the business. And I was delighted to meet him. And I'd met him before at different shows. We never really spoke seriously before, but we had a nice long chat. And I think his story is going to be very interesting for everybody out there. So Hayato, thank you very much for coming today.
No, thank you so much for your time. I think, for myself, I'm in mid-30s, so I don't know if I'm considered young blood still, but, I still feel like I have a lot of energy and momentum that I could, offer the industry.
We'll squeeze you into the box here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you have an interesting background. So let's start with your father.
Mhm.
Your family is Japanese. And let's start with your father and how he got to America, because I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I think for my father, he grew up in Fukuoka, Japan. He was the youngest of three brothers, and overall, I think he had a little bit of job experience in Japan, but quickly realized that there might be more opportunities overseas. And so, with his first child, which is my oldest brother, he actually pursued a career in Australia in engineering. And so, from that, I think he felt like there were definitely a lot more opportunities overseas, and that's what considered him to pursue more endeavors in the US as well when it came to, I guess, cross more international engineering opportunities that kind of involves Japan and the US.
So you were born in the United States, right?
Yes, I was born in Boston.
In Boston, and you grew up in Boston? Or how many years did you?
Also grew up, it's a question mark. I grew up in a lot of different areas. I was born in Boston, lived there for 5 years. Then I moved to Brentwood, Tennessee, which is a little bit outside of Nashville. I lived there for another 5 years. And then when I was 10 years old, I moved to Tokyo, Japan, went to a international Catholic school there, all boys school. Went there until I graduated high school. And then for college, I went back to Boston. So Boston, I guess it would be the somewhere I have a close attachment to because I was born there and I didn't study my university days there. But in terms of the length, I think New York is the longest I've stayed in one place.
How long you been in New York?
I've been here for 13 years now.
Wow.
Mhm.
And how was it going to school in Japan? I mean, I'm Hungarian, and
Mhm.
when I go back to Hungary, it's always a weird feeling
Yeah.
because you're part of them and you're not part of them.
Yes.
And then you sort of feel like you're not part of anybody, and then you're part of everybody, and it's kind
Mhm.
of a weird dynamic. How was
Yeah.
it for you?
I would say it's the same way. It's the same way. We have this specific word called TCK, it's third culture kids, meaning that I guess I don't identify to either U.S. or Japan. And being in an international school, a Catholic school as well, it wasn't considered a regular school in Japanese standards. So for my sports kind of days, play basketball and baseball, we were not able to compete in Japanese leagues, like school leagues.
Really?
So yeah, we have a separate league. We were part of the Far East DOD, like Department of Defense. So we would play it against American based schools. So Kadena, Kubasaki, Yokota, Zama, all the military bases in Japan were the schools that we would play against, as well as other international schools. Yeah.
That's funny. And then how did you get interested in fashion?
To be honest with you, I was thinking about this for quite some time, but I think it also kind of has to do with my background of moving around a lot. As much as I don't want to judge a book by its cover, a lot of times I tend to kind of look at how people dress. And so that's how I wanted to present myself. I quickly loved to kind of really uh, dress myself in different ways and express myself through fashion. And so I've always been a consumer in my early days, and naturally wanted to learn a little bit more on the production side and how brands work as well. And so that's what kind of piqued my interest towards fashion.
Did living in Japan have any impact on you?
Japan, yes. Even in Tennessee, like I was dressing a little bit different compared to some of the folks in my school. But going to Japan definitely gave me a little bit of a different perspective towards how people express themselves.
What perspective?
I think it was unique because, for example, like Japan tends to be a lot more conservative, I would say, when they express themselves. But when it comes to fashion, there's a whole other way of expression. You have even in the 90s and 2000s, the Harajuku girls who dress themselves in like doll-like clothes and and whatnot. But I think the gap between kind of like the lack of being able to express yourself in certain cultures in Japan and versus what you can wear to express yourself non-verbally was quite impactful to me. So even though I'm not too much of a very extroverted person, I think fashion can also add to your kind of expressiveness, if that makes sense.
Well, in Japan, it's so funny because sometimes you see these people in crazy outfits. They
Yes.
look really, really weird, and then when you talk to them, they gotta go home and take care of their grandmother.
Yeah. Yeah.
They look like the last people on earth that would be doing that, but they live a very conservative life.
Exactly. Exactly. So expression is just like another way. And I think, for me, your body's kind of like the canvas and the clothes that you put on it is your paint strokes. And so that's how,
I always say it's like Halloween every day,
yes, yes.
if you want it to be.
I agree. I agree.
Tell me about fashion in Japan in the sense of jeans. Did you get into jeans, or were you not into jeans and more into streetwear? What
So
was your thing?
streetwear naturally kind of gravitated my interest towards fashion. I think the first pair of like proper denims that I bought were Ivisu's.
Mhm.
It had a lot of significance in U.S. like the hip hop scene in the U.S. at that time too. So as well as brands like Bape. It's not the most denim forward brand, but
Yeah.
I used to own denims from Bape, Evisu, obviously Levi's, and during that time they were really focused on the engineered jeans concept. But those were my early kind of segues into the denim scene, or at least wearing my own pair.
Did you notice anything different about Japanese jeans versus American jeans?
To be honest, I was a consumer at that point in time, and I wasn't too educated enough to really know the differences.
Yeah.
It was really more of a design aesthetic and how you present yourself. I didn't have that appreciation during that time.
And then from being a consumer, how did you get in? Let's go backwards. Where did you go to university?
So I went to university in Boston called Northeastern. I studied business management and entrepreneurship there. Nothing really related to fashion, to be honest with you. But it was interesting because a group of my friends actually submitted a business proposal to the university. There was a program called IDEA, where you submit a business proposal and they will give you a financial grant if you won that. My friends successfully submitted a plan and got that financial grant to start up a clothing line called Animals, personified word of animal. And it was really to create a streetwear scene and fashion scene within the greater Boston area, because there's not many up and coming brands coming out of Boston during that time. And so even with like I think the rise of Karma Loop being based out of Boston, there was a huge presence of streetwear and e-commerce within the community, but there was no gathering place for people to kind of network with each other. And so what the founders originally did was create a pop-up store on Newbury Street called the Concrete Jungle. That was the first of its series where it really created a place for all these creatives in Boston, because Boston's filled with, colleges and universities, but there's no gathering point for these younger people to kind of, yeah, gather and just share ideas, network and just
How long was the pop-up store there?
so we did have a series of 3 pop-ups. So Concrete Jungle was the first one. I think that one lasted a year. Second one was Green Street Jungle, which was in collaboration with another partner from Babson University. He was going around town with a food truck, but converted it into a streetwear shop. So he would go around college campuses selling streetwear clothing. And he was capturing a scene, so we decided to collaborate with him and made it Green Street Jungle, so we could kind of bring that crowd that he attracts at different campuses to a central point in Newbury Street. That was round 2. Round 3 was Kyoto Jungle. That's where I had the most involvement in, and this is where kind of we synergize with other producers. There's this company called One Off Apparel. They're a t-shirt manufacturer out of Massachusetts. They do a lot of the print projects for the Patriots, the Red Sox, things like that. But we actually had a dye sublimation printer in the back of the shop doing customized pieces, in store.
And how was that experience? What did you learn from that?
It was nice. It was definitely the opportunity to kind of really collaborate, create a community, network with one another. When there were special, artists and rappers from other states visiting Boston, they would pop by the store. We would have events. So I really felt like building a sense of community in the fashion scene in Boston was the biggest takeaway from that experience.
And does the brand still exist?
Unfortunately, no. The founders, one of them moved to New York, and then another kind of pursued different opportunities. It was really more of a good college experience to really
Yeah.
express your creativity in a more tangible way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So then when you graduated, what did you do after you worked at that brand?
After working in embroidered hats, printed t-shirts, I wanted to know a little bit more around the manufacturing of fashion. And so when I was pursuing opportunities, there weren't much, to be honest with you, in Boston. There's a lot of footwear, companies out of Boston, but there's a ceiling to what, Boston offers in terms of fashion industry opportunities. So I quickly, gravitated towards New York as a fashion capital of the US. And during that time, my wife, or my girlfriend at that time, was working at Katsu, New York.
Uh-huh.
And so through her connections, I was able to meet with a person that worked at Shima Seiki. They were only looking for an intern at that moment, but after kind of speaking with them and they got to know me, they quickly arranged a position for me to kind of help with their product development team. And that's what got me into Shima Seiki.
Okay, let's stop there and spend some time here.
Mhm.
The listener, not everybody knows who Shima Seiki is. So why don't you tell their little story? Because I think it's interesting to learn.
Sure thing, sure thing. Shima Seiki, they're the world's leading manufacturer of flatbed knitting machines.
Let's start from the beginning. They're Japanese.
Yeah, they're a Japanese company based out of Wakayama.
How old is the company?
They are around for over 60 years now.
60 years.
Yes.
They
They
produce,
produce, they're the world's leading manufacturer of flatbed knitting machines.
which means what?
It's just knitting machines that are in a flat a shape, kind of like your Dubier machines, like your hand knitting machines.
Yes.
It's not the circular ones that you see that knits your socks. It's a flat shape, so you're generally speaking knitting flat panels at a time. However, for them, they were actually quite a unique company as innovators in this kind of knitting space, because they were actually the pioneers of glove knitting machines. The founder, Dr. Shima, after World War II, his mother was taking on the process of linking on the different panels of gloves together, the rib.
All in one shot.
Yeah, yeah. So he,
They didn't have any sewing involved. They just knitted the gloves.
yes, he was the pioneer of the first seamless glove knitting machine, which kind of overcame the struggles that his mother was taking on. Quickly from that glove knitting machine, he took the kind of 5 fingers. I know this isn't going to be shown on video, but if you take the 3 middle fingers on your hand, he envisioned that to be kind of like your body. And then the pinky and thumb can be your sleeves. And then that rib portion on the cuff can be kind of like a turtleneck. So from that glove knitting technology, he expanded it to offer seamless garment knitting machines, which is called whole garment. And that was what I was really focused on pushing in the US.
So they make the whole sweater.
It's a 3D printer for sweaters, all knitted 3D goods. So it could be 2D knitting, which is your flat panel knitting, which everyone uses today, that requires a little bit of linking on the seams to kind of attach the panels together. There's 2.5D knitting, which is, your engineered knit concepts that's used in like flat knit applications such as shoe uppers, like your fly knits, prime knits. And then you have your 3D knits, which knits everything in one entire piece, no seams, no additions afterwards.
It's an amazing technology.
I definitely think it is a great technology. It's less labor intensive, and you're minimizing the raw materials that you need to use per garment.
How much are those machines?
They range around like 150 to 300K.
Wow.
Approximately.
They're not cheap.
They're not cheap. But in terms of like considering the, increasing labor costs in the US, I was also involved in some of the reshoring projects during early COVID. But, if you're trying to bring production back to the US, you can't do it in the same way we used to, which, the labor intensive processes are a lot difficult. So with 3D knitting or whole garment knitting, if you have the capital, you could invest in that and have the machine run for you pretty much, There's factories that I've kind of helped set up in Brooklyn that offers on-demand production made in USA. And so the capabilities are there. It's just the know-how and the education is just a little bit weaker in the US.
What does that mean?
Ever since American brands started outsourcing in the 60s and 70s, they've lost touch of what it takes to create a garment. And that has created a disconnect in how much appreciation we have towards making things and the product creation process, which is unfortunate, And I think this is what created the gap in terms of the opportunity to create these new production workflows that might be considerable for the future.
How long did you work there?
I worked there for 8 years.
That's a long time.
That's a decent number of time. And, during that time, I did, gradually change my position. I was really business development person, as well as a PR, marketing, as well as sales, kind of doing all things knitting technologies. But the issue that I felt there was that, even if you have a sustainable form of knitting, such as a whole garment, where you're really using only the amount of materials that you need, a lot of people opted into poly-based yarns and fibers, which defeated the purpose of using a sustainable knitting method, right? And so I wanted to focus a little bit more on using more sustainable materials so that you can accentuate the sustainable knitting properties. And so, that's where I gradually shifted my interest towards maybe influencing brands on their fiber decisions.
So you were doing sales for them?
Sales, marketing, pretty much anything to kind of promote the whole garment technologies in the US, as well as they also have another area called the Apex design system, which is Apex Fizz now, which is a software version. But that's also kind of highlighting the digital product creation side of things.
I see. So you enjoyed that?
I did. I think it was, for me, I naturally gravitate towards innovation, newness, whether that be technologies, processes, or even new brands. I love following what's new in the market. So I always continue to chase new opportunities, innovations. And I feel like they're definitely the forefront and they're ahead of its time almost, because it's taking a lot of time for consumer adoption or even, brand level adoption.
This episode of the Jeansland podcast is brought to you by Inside Denim, the global resource for everything denim. From sustainability insights to fabric innovation and brand stories shaping the future of the jeans industry. Inside Denim keeps you informed and inspired So stay ahead of what's next in denim at InsideDenim.com. You can also visit Jeansland.co and sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter. It gives you access to our full archive, along with the development shifts and stories shaping the denim supply chain in real time. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram to stay connected between episodes. And then you went from there. Where did you go from there?
So from there, I did a collaboration during that time with Lenzing Fibers on a Tencel Model Indigo program.
Yeah, I remember that product. That fiber was great.
So it was a game changer for the knitting industry at that time. You know, knitters generally don't want to touch indigo yarns just because it stains their equipment. They have to do heavy, deep cleaning after every production run. But this was a game changer as it has no color fastness or it doesn't rub off. And so we quickly did a collaboration with Trisha at the time at Lenzing and Adriana Goldschmidt to come up with a capsule collection called Seed of Joy that used indigo model applications in whole garment knitting technologies.
And then from there, you went to work for Lenzing full-time?
Yes. So that's when I decided to hopefully join the Lenzing team, influence brands on their kind of fiber level decisions so that the end product can be a lot more sustainable.
And what do you do at Lenzing now?
So for Lenzing, it's really about engaging, informing, and collaborating with our U.S. brand partners to really consider our fibers for future product collections. This kind of involves around highlighting new applications, new technologies, new processes that might add a new edge to their existing Tencel lines. Or it could be engaging with them to really figure out their material strategies from a sustainable angle. But the overall thing that I kind of, what piqued my interest towards fibers is that there's this report published by the Fiber Year that goes around the fiber gap, talking about how much fiber we need in the market to cover the global population. By 2030, they're expecting that number to be around like 180 million tons to cover the global population. But the yield and the production output of natural based fibers are going to be very limited, such as cotton, wool, bast fibers, things like that. They're not going to increase the production volume significantly to cover that global population demand. And most of that gap is unfortunately going to be covered by the synthetics area. And so what I envision is hopefully filling in that gap with cellulosic fibers such as Tencel and Ecovero, in hopes that they can consider a more sustainable future instead of relying on less sustainable applications.
What do you think of synthetics like polyester, nylon?
I think it's inevitable that we're still going to use it. I still love some polyester products till this day. There's some performance that you can't achieve naturally, unfortunately. But I think when it comes to jersey applications or like certain applications, it makes more sense to rely more on natural-based fibers.
Well, I'm interested. This is one of the things that I'm interested in when talking to young people.
Mm-hmm.
Is what do you and your friends like or dislike in this industry? Like, do you like synthetics? Do you think it's good?
I think at the end of the day, synthetic, like the material properties are second consideration or a third consideration. First consideration for most consumers is always going to be the look and design. If it doesn't look, even if it's a sustainable product, if the product does not look good, they're not going to purchase it, right? The first is the look and design buy-in. Second is the price point, meaning if it justifies that value or not. And
Right.
then third is going to be the material or additional kind of add-ons
Yes.
that people will consider. So generally speaking, even amongst my friends, it's always going to be the price and design first. And then as a extra or cherry on top, if it's sustainable, it will connect with their more kind of emotional side that they're feeling better for using a more sustainable product.
So when you sell to the brands, is it the same kind of three issues?
I would say so. But then when it comes to brands, they're the ones designing the product, right? So design and look, I think it's less of a factor. It's more about the performance and hand feel first for brands. Price obviously comes second, and the sustainability kind of comes afterwards. The other thing that I do want to mention is that, when you're talking to designers and product developers, you're really focused on those like hand feel, price, those types of aspects. But there are times where I'm engaging with the sustainability teams at the brands, right? So the conversations aren't really necessarily on the fabric level or the hand feel. It's going to be around material choices. And if the brand has their own SDGs, for example, they need to figure out their material strategy to minimize their water consumption, carbon emissions. And that's where our fibers also come into play.
Do the sustainability departments have a say in the purchase?
They can set up material matrices, meaning like they can pre-approve certain types of materials into their platform for designers to choose from.
Right. They can't make a decision on this particular fabric or this particular, they can just put them on a matrix.
Yep. So they can set the baseline of what materials brands can select from. And for example, if it's a completely new fiber, it takes a little bit of time for them to kind of involve it in their material matrix and then lead to adoption for the designers to choose from.
I see. You've created a small brand called Nishi and
Yeah.
focused on customized and upcycling. What is it and what inspired you?
So for me, like I naturally consider myself a creative. I use it to take ceramics, IB higher level. I like making things with my hand. I do a lot of sewing projects on myself.
By the way, that doesn't sound like the typical fiber salesperson.
Right. But I feel like I needed avenue to one, have a revenue stream to survive in New York, and then another to kind of express myself creatively. And so with the corporate side, obviously there are some limitations of how I can express myself because it's really the brand partners that's taking our fibers and putting it into products. So for me, I just wanted to have another angle for me to express myself creatively. Nishi and is really a personalized project where I make curated pieces per individual. So it's really for my family and friends. Some of my friends that are kind of artists making music. I would make upcycled pieces, curating vintage patchworks, pins, hats, kind of creating that. I also did a collaboration with a friend who owns Brooklyn Vintage Club. Did a 16-piece collection on upcycled starter and chalk line jackets from the 1992 and 1993 to just like highlight the nostalgia that we have from some of those sportswear memorabilia, but not wearing the full jacket, but kind of representing it in a way that's a little bit more usable for people in our 30s and 40s.
Do you learn anything from your own project that you use for corporate?
There are certain cases where I might have some takeaways, but for the most part, it's more of a creative expression angle. Not too much that I could take away from my corporate side, unfortunately.
Okay. So let's go back to denim. Now you've been around a long time, relatively long time. How many years in the business? 12 or something?
12. If you include those streetwear startup days, then it would be over 15.
Okay. What did you learn about denim and what do you think about denim today?
I think denim is an interesting area because uh, since I was exposed to more of the 3D knitting side of things where everything's streamlined in one process, denim gave me a lot more uh, depth in manufacturing just because there's so many more
Complicated.
so many more players within the product stream,
The
right?
supply chain, yeah.
So you can't do it all. I mean, there are vertical factories that do it all under one roof, but for the most part, unlike 3D knitting, there's a
A lot of steps.
collaboration effort, and there's also processes in between each stage, and so that's what gave me a lot more appreciation and towards denim, and want to understand the depth of each process, right? Or else I won't understand denim fully.
Do you see any difference between American jeans and Japanese jeans now?
I would definitely say there's a difference, being that you know Japanese denim tends to focus a little bit more on the craftsmanship and heritage of making denim, whereas there's not much emphasis on sustainability.
That's true.
In the U.S., it's kind of the other way around, where they're focused on more better processes, better materials, whilst maintaining that authenticity and heritage.
What jeans do you like?
I
What
personally go to our Levi's. I would have to say my
what about Uniqlo?
Uniqlo's nice. They make great quality. That was I think early in my days when I couldn't afford too many good denims, those were my go-tos. And also, trends also shifted too. So I think early on when I was looking at stretch denims, skinny jeans were popular in the 2000s. So when I was into skinnies, I think Uniqlo I offered a lot more affordable options during my early college days, late high school days. But now I think I gravitate more towards non-commodity items, if that makes sense. I like purchasing things that differentiate me in a way.
Where do
And
you shop?
I shop around. I do a lot of vintage shopping still. One of my favorite pairs is like a sample Levi's 1970 Olympic pair that I own. Um,
Do you go to Macy's, or you and your friends go to Macy's or Bloomingdale's, or
Unfortunately, not to shop. I'd go there to do market research. I do a lot of shopping at more locally owned stores. One of my friends owns And Son. That's in the kind of the meatpacking area. Has a lot of great kind of independent brands and designers. There's also Blue and Green Soho that captures a lot of Japanese denim, capital engineered garments, sugarcane. There's also Self Edge in Lower East Side, which also has a great curation of unique salvage applications. But I think I like the more the storytell angle of denim pieces nowadays.
what do you think about the department stores? I mean, their potential in the long term.
I think
'Cause
there's.
young people, like it started when my daughter's 46, but when she was young,
Mhm,
she was not so inclined and to go to Macy's. She'd say, "Oh, I'll wait for you outside, while you go in because it's too hot in there."
mhm,
Young people, even 20 years ago, didn't want to go to department stores.
mm,
And department stores are having lots of troubles.
yeah.
How do you see that as a member of the industry? How do you see the distribution of our merchandise?
I think it's with the presence of e-commerce, the social media, like speed to market and connection with your consumers are crucial, for brands to survive. And when you have kind of department stores in between, it dilutes the messaging for most of these brands. So even if there's a new startup company that's doing well, and Macy's was interested in selling I don't want to call out Macy's specifically, but if a department store wants to carry their item,
We
um,
love them all.
yeah, we love yeah, we love them all. But just speaking, I think they lose a lot of the character and the connection that you can have with your customers when you do it directly. A lot of these brands nowadays, they don't even have a brick and mortar. They do e-commerce. They connect with their customers digitally through social media, activate campaigns, and have a closer relationship to their customers than bigger brands can.
Yeah. So if you were an investor in brands, you would not invest big in brick and mortar.
I'm not saying that, to be honest, because there's also different ways that brick and mortar attracts customers. It's just the level of engagement needs to be a little bit different, right? It's more experiential. It's more community driven that brings consumers back to that brand.
Understand?
For example, like it's not a denim brand, but there's a store nearby. I live right off the Grand Ave stop in Brooklyn, but there's a shop called Home Run New York. It's a Japanese American brand. They base their products off of like baseball inspired streetwear. But every like weekend they have runners gathering at their store. They do a run series and they have events in stores. It creates a community and creates
And
a different attachment towards the brand, right?
there's a store in Houston where I live.
Hmm.
It's owned by PJ Tucker, ex NBA player,
Hmm. Hmm.
and he has a basketball court there.
Oh,
He has a
yeah.
whole restaurant, like if you can rent it for parties, and they can barbecue, and it's like a whole store, like a small, kind of streetwear store
Hmm.
or sports store. It's a cross between sports and street. But then he has this basketball court and he has this whole entertainment area.
Yeah.
And I think the store is like mind blowing.
I think, yeah. So in that sense, like when it comes to brick and mortar, omni-channel or like the presence of offering diverse categories within one shop to give a better experience to the consumers and better options is gonna be the future of retail, I would say. So instead of one department store carrying various brands from high, low, medium tier, um, you could have places like Uniqlo in Fifth Ave that offer cafes that have like imprint studio or in-store print studio, embroidery services. Having those types of engaging activities is what brings customers into the stores.
All right. I want you to talk to me about what it is that you love and what it is you dislike in our industry.
What I love is when we collaborate amongst one another and share learnings to kind of better the industry in a sense. The On the other hand, what I don't like is when um, there's a lot more efficient, streamlined workflows that we could consider, but we aren't able to do that due to like corporate conflicts and things like that.
Do you find the industry surprising in its use of technology one way or another?
Yes, yes, I would say yeah, I would say the use of technology is definitely a key drivers for, I guess, offering newness to the market.
Hmm.
And I think that's what I gravitate towards naturally. And newer technologies sometimes might not be the solution, but it is a step forward or a progress from where we were at. So I think always new technologies are interesting and encouraging for me.
If you could do your career again, would you go back into the same path or what would you change?
Um, I don't know how I would change it because, the career path that I took led me to being here with you today. I don't know if I would have had that opportunity if I chose otherwise. Um, but if I were to consider myself, going into the fashion industry right after high school, I might have chosen a different university. I think that's the
That's how I feel. I would have gone to a different university for sure.
yeah. I think that's the only thing I would have changed. But in terms of my career choices, I'm happy with what I've experienced, and I'm still learning till this day. I keep my eyes open, ears open on what's new, and I'm never going to be an expert. I think my life is about growing and learning, and so this is why I really want to learn new things and see newer applications, new innovations, and then that's what encourages me to look towards the future.
What would you recommend for young people who want to go in this business?
I would say a lot of people are, even me when I graduated college, a lot of people are very worried about where they end up or the destination overall. But I think the journey and the learning process is part of the game. And I think that's what I want them to focus on. It's not about, okay, where comparing yourself to others and where we are at in the career and like where we are at in our time of our lives. It's about learning and continuous education to better yourself and growing more than yesterday. And so any sort of like questions that you ask all these experts and brands and mills that you meet with at trade shows, it's never going to be a stupid question because these experts are learning new things every day too. So
Everybody is.
so I think continuous education is what you need to focus on and always keep an open eye, open ear, and never shut the doors just because you have a certain mindset. Always keep it open because you never know when those relationships can come back.
Very last question. What do you see the role of AI in our business?
I would say it's definitely interesting. A lot of people are using it in the wrong ways. I would I would say
What does that mean? Tell me what the wrong way is and tell me what the right way is.
I would say I value creativity, human creativity, and that's where people are using it. Unfortunately, if we use AI in a way to streamline processes, train like machine learning, connect the dots between certain manufacturing processes, I think it would be a lot better. But unfortunately, AI isn't being used in those areas to bridge the gap, but it's really being used to replace the human aspects of creativity.
Imagination sometimes, right?
Yeah. And so, like, for example, when I was at Shima, I used to compare the fashion industry to the newspaper industry. For example, like the newspaper industry back in the day, they used to, line up all the letters through for block printing. That has evolved now to a point where we're able to design everything on screen, see the outcome of what's printed or the outcome before you even go to production. Right now, with the fashion industry, it's still not at that stage where you're fully able to see things on screen and get the exact same output, physically. Right now, there are tools that you're able to digitally create products on screen, but it's not designing it in the manufacturing language that can be plugged into the equipment at the end of the day. So if we could figure out a way to really bridge that gap between design and manufacturing, I think that'll be the biggest change for AI and machine learning.
Hayato, I just want to say it was a pleasure having you.
Yes, thank
I
you so
want to
much.
say that I think Lenzing is very lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you reached out to me, and you've had an incredible start to your career. And I think you're going to have an excellent life in this business.
That means a lot to me. So thank you so much again for your time, for hosting me for this session, and look forward to connecting again in person.
All right. Take care, and thank you very much.
Thank you.